So I'm the co-owner of Van Compass, and I'm also the engineer here.
I'm kind of the do-all behind the scenes, run the company guy. We have 3 full-time employees here doing the daily grind with us.
Basically, it started out that my business partner, Mark Hesser, he bought a van years ago, and him and his girlfriend were going to travel around in a van and kind of decide what they wanted to do with their life.
And I got the van and started looking at it and started using it, and we were doing, 10 guys and 10 bikes in it. It was a big, long, like 158 old 2006 van.
He came to me one day and was like, "Look at this thing, do you think we make parts for this?" And at the time we were working for an off-road Jeep company, making Jeep suspension and kind of that hardcore rock crawling stuff for Jeeps and in a full-size Dodge truck. The more we looked into it, the more kind of we started tinkering with vans. We're like, these things are super cool. And the four-wheel drive Sprinter came out, and then that really kind of struck home with the two of us. And yeah, we just started making vans capable as Jeeps. So that's kind of what happened. And that was, in 2015 we started, and been doing it ever since.
So when AdVANture Hunter approached us, we figured out that what they're going to be using their vans for is kind of exactly what we build products for.
So the guys from AdVANture Hunter, they sent us an email sort of explaining that they're going to be making this really cool adventure series with a bunch of people that just do exactly what we want people to do in these vans. So, that's going snowboarding, going mountain biking, that's going kayaking, that's getting off the beaten path, picking a dirt road and just going and having fun. And so when they got in touch with us and we're like, well, yeah, you're our customer base, and we make components to do exactly that. So like these vans can be extremely capable and extremely comfortable with the correct upgrades. Kind of show you a little bit about what we're going to install today. Part of this system is the Fox shocks that we're going to be installing. Now, Fox is a well-known brand in off-road racing, mountain bike, motocross, and also in automotive. These are their aluminum-bodied bolt-in IFP shocks. These are great because they are aluminum body. They don't rust, they don't corrode as bad. We put boots on to protect the shock shafts to prevent, salt and corrosion from tearing up the quality of the finish on the shock shaft itself. So this can be prone, especially if you live in heavy winter and you're going to be using the van in winter. These often will get rusted and pitted, but with boots on them, that's not a thing to worry about. So Fox doesn't really make a bolt-in shock for the Sprinter vans. So in order to get these onto the Sprinter, we had to develop, find the correct length that matched the Sprinter OEM shocks, and then make bushings and sleeves to be able to adapt them into the Sprinter vans. The rear of this package also includes our 3-leaf mini pack. Now this mini pack complements the factory spring that's already under the van. Now the factory spring works great, but once the van gets built up a little heavier and gets near its gross vehicle weight rating and is running at that weight all the time, the rear springs tend to sag a little bit. They can't quite keep up quite as well. So these, 3-leaf pack bolts underneath the factory pack and gives it anywhere from a 5 to 10% spring rate increase, and just firms up the van a little bit more so it feels like an empty van again, but not harsh. So it's a fine line between harshness and comfort, and we're able to do that because we've been doing this for a very long time. So it'll lift the van back to sort of an unloaded look. That way it has plenty of up travel and won't be getting into the bump stops too frequently. So paired this 3-leaf mini pack with the tuned rear shocks makes the rear of the van super compliant, very Mercedes-like, where it has that firm yet very compliant feeling going down the road. Okay, so we just finished installing the mini leaf pack underneath the factory leaf springs. So that's step one. Step two is now installing the tuned Fox shocks onto the van. So we're almost done with the rear. We're gonna wrap this up, torque everything to spec, put the new wheels and tires on, and then we're gonna move to the front. Installed the rear shocks. Since these are reservoir shocks, we need to also secure the reservoir. And because this reservoir has an adjuster on it, we want to try to position it so that the reservoir is accessible pretty easily. But at the same time, we got a lot of suspension movement happening, so we got to make sure we're not going to get into the axle hitting the reservoir, when the tire hitting the reservoir. I can't mount it here because the spring will hit. So we typically mount it with this longer hose. It's pretty nice. We can mount it sort of on the back side, so it's pretty easy to just reach in, not have to lay on the ground and adjust the reservoir to adjust the shock when necessary. So we're doing now, and we're just about finished. One more lower shock bolt, and then the rear will be pretty much done. One more tiny bolt.
Yeah, so we're pretty much ready to wrap up the rear. The leaf pack's done, the new shocks are in, fresh U-bolts, everything's torqued, throw on the tires and move on to the front.
And that's the solution for the rear. The solution for the front is a little more in depth. Because of the front suspension design of the Sprinter, you really can't just bolt in a shock there. So we invented a mounting system to be able to adapt a secondary shock to the front of the van. So these are the shock mounting brackets. These bolt into factory holes on the chassis and provides us a location to be able to bolt in Fox 2.0 on the front of the shock. So we're leaving the factory strut configuration, but now we are complementing it with a secondary shock. There's 3 factory holes that we have placed just right in the bracket that it locates the bracket, and then we drilled 2 additional holes just to really secure the bracket to the chassis. Now the other added benefit to this is these are tunable shocks. So every shock that goes out the door from Van Compass gets tuned to the weight and driving characteristics that the vehicle is going to be doing. So for the AdVANture Hunter vehicles, they are going to be seeing a lot of off-road, and in between that they're going to be seeing a lot of highway. So we're going to be tuning these accordingly. So that means these shocks are going to handle 10 times better on-road, but then also when the van gets off-road, it's going to help really control the rocking when you get on sort of undulated forest roads and weird 2-track that's going to want to throw the top-heavy vans around. The van is just going to stay super smooth and very compliant going down forest roads. The rear shocks we're throwing on these fans, these are remote reservoir Foxes, and another great cool thing about these is they're adjustable. These have what Fox called their LSC adjuster, which is a low-speed compression adjuster. So you can ramp up the low-speed compression and then also lighten it up at the same time. So when you get out in the dirt, the suspension's moving a bunch, you want a little more softer ride, you can back it off. Get on the highway and you're in heavy winds, you're going to be on a twisty mountain road where you don't want the van to be leaning at all, you can crank it up some more. And not only that, you can fine tune it per the driver. So if the driver wants a little firmer ride, they can crank them up. If they don't want it, they can loosen it up.
Yeah, we're getting close. Rob's got the next biggest task, which is getting the fender liners trimmed to fit around the brackets, and then it's pretty much ready to roll.
Quick trim on the fender liners to clear the shock brackets, and then they can be reinstalled, and then it's wheels on, we're pretty much done. So this is another aspect of the Stage 3 kit that we'll be putting on the front of the van. This is called a Sumo spring. So the Sumo spring replaces the factory bump stop, and it's actually a progressive spring. So it is taller than the factory bump stop. The factory bump stop's only about that, maybe about an inch tall, and it's only really used for sort of that last stage of compression. If you hit a really big bump, and you know, it's to prevent metal on metal contact. It's just that last kind of line of defense. We're going to remove that, and we're going to bolt in a Sumo spring, and what this does is basically the same thing that the leaf springs do in the rear. This gives it a slight spring rate increase without adding harshness. So it's a super simple install, but it makes a world of difference in controlling the added weight that a built-out adventure van ends up seeing, and really helps again when you get on that kind of undulating, uneven forest road conditions that, you know, most forest roads tend to be in, where it's not a smooth two-track. It tends to be a bump on one side, the other side. This helps really aid the shocks in keeping the heavy weight of these big adventure vans under control and keeping the occupants super comfortable.
So this is the Band Compass diff skid. Goes right under the diff, and if you do any sort of off-roading, it's going to protect the diff and the most important part, the diff cover, from any rocks or damage or anything like that. Give you all the protection.
Okay, so we're going to install another relatively simple bracket to be able to put some high power auxiliary lighting on the van. It's real easy install. These are hood line LED light brackets, and they bolt on using the hood hinge bolts, and you can see the little studs protruding through right here underneath the hood, and this just goes and uses those studs, and we will secure that to the van. And this allows us to put like a 2x2 or 3-inch diameter LED pod mount, which is really nice because it's kind of right at your kind of eye line when you're driving, you're looking forward and down at the van, at the road, and you can position these to sort of angle out off to the side where you wouldn't typically see, you know, maybe deer or elk or something about to cross the road, or if you're just looking for a bitchin' camp spot on the side of the out in the woods. It kind of lights up off to the side of the van as well. So super easy install. We're gonna throw them on right now. We're just about done, so we're gonna say goodbye to these guys and let them hit the road. If you're interested in more parts or any parts like what we installed on this van here, check out our website at vancompass.com.
We decided to come on board with them to give them you know, oh shoot.
That's all good.
Rambling, yeah.
Audio check 1, 2.
Okay, I gotta dial you back a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll try again.